What is going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a terrific Wednesday. Sorry for a couple of technical difficulties for the hosting company that's put us in a little bit of a weird spot with Sheets' projections getting uploaded. So we're very sorry about that. In the meantime, I can tell you for everybody who has SaberSim that they are, I talked to Sheets about it, they are very similar to what SaberSim is projecting today on almost every front. And I think that's a good work between, and we'll on our end, we'll try not to make this happen again. This is sort of a little bit out of our hands, and I feel bad saying that. I hate not having a good answer. But we're trying to figure it out, and going to make sure it doesn't happen again. We've already upped our server. We've done a lot more because we've been handling some more traffic with the SaberSim partnership and whatnot. But we're sorry about that, the sheet specific ones not being uploaded. But I will tell you what I'm doing. You can take the projections from SaberSim if you have that through DFS. You've got my core plays on there as well on both on FanDuel and DraftKings. And let's make some money today. So anyway, let's get into it. All right, here's the way that this slate should look to me from my perspective. You should not be playing as much of the early games as possible, especially as it relates to value. So I'm not playing the early value hardly at all. I'm going to really quick go through because I think this is really important. We need to know who starts between Sacramento and Houston. That's really important, especially on the Houston side, which we don't know who they're going to start. So just keep that in mind. DiVincenzo, the priorities are DiVincenzo, Mitchell, Martin, Tate for right now. Let's see who starts though. If Bruno starts, if Garuba starts, just keep an eye out for it. Also, there's a tank fest and all this stuff. So I don't know. It's going to be weird. I'm going to turn this off so we can figure this out. And anyway, they're trying to work on the back end stuff of the site. So sorry about that, guys. Also, Garrison Matthews starting versus look, who knows? They've got Nawaba. They've got 10 guys. But I like Josh Christopher a lot, and I think his ownership is going to be very low if he's not starting, and I think that's a really good situation to take advantage of. So I think it might even stay low. It won't be as low if he starts, obviously, because people are going to be doing what I'm talking about, but it is, in my opinion, the right way to play today. You've also got the Sacramento starting situation, which is going to be, they've got 9 guys I've got projected right now. So whether it's probably Damian Jones and Lyles as it's been so far. I still think that there's a chance. I still think Metu's a good play off the bench. I think DiVincenzo's a good play off the bench. I'm not really touching much of the Quita and Harkless at the moment unless they do something weird like start these guys. But the early game guys we have to consider are the spend ups, which is for the most part Luka and Jokic. I like both of them. I don't feel either of them are musts. I prefer some guys in the later games. That's my take on those guys. If you could definitely, I'm not going to argue if you play either of them. I think I would lean Jokic a little bit ahead of Luka because the back-to-back, a little bit of a tougher matchup, but they're both an important, need to win kind of situation. So I really do like those. I did also post my bets, by the way, which have been kind of on fire again after a little bit of a slow period after a great beginning of the season. But it's been, it's been like 90% this last week or so, I think, or somewhere around there, maybe a little higher than 80. I got to double check the tracker, but the guys you're considering from the early games, the guys who I like the most from the earlier games are mostly on the 7:30 games. But in the first game, LeVert and Love on FanDuel especially. But LeVert you can play on DraftKings, but I like him on FanDuel better. Love, I obviously way prefer on FanDuel at 5,300. And again, we need starting lineups for those games. And that might, some of what I say might be out the window if we get a late minute scratch or somebody else is starting that we're not expecting in these early games. So keep an eye out for that. But I'm not very excited to try to get too much ownership in either of those sides, to be honest with you. The only weird play that, came up there was maybe, in the first game was maybe, I don't know. In the Indiana game was maybe the idea of Lance Stevenson, but I just think I'm going to pass on it. But I do think that you're going to see a game one of these times before the year's out, especially with them taking and everything where he's going to take over. It's just a large field, 1 out of 150 kind of a thing. But the guys who I am are LeVert and Love. I like Butler or Bam. I know that the matchup, and I love that when the situation comes up in the NBA, a lot of people who have known me, who followed me for a long time, know that I always used to, when Utah had the best rated defense and everything, I'd always try to attack Utah because it would almost always mean the better players got to take over, especially in a game like this, competing for first place in the East right now. They're a half game separating them. It seems like a really good spot to take advantage of this and go with they're going to focus on playing through Butler, or that Bam is not in as bad of a matchup as it seems, and they'll be focusing. But these guys might play 40 minutes tonight. This is a really big game, and people say, "Oh, they're going to be trying to do this." It's weird because you want the 1 or the 3 in the East, because otherwise the 2 most likely could be Brooklyn. So it's kind of a strange situation. But I do think that they're going to try and win the East. So I like making those plays. I love Cat, and I like Edwards or Russell if you're not playing Cat. I don't think I would play those guys together. And I think Fred VanVleet on FanDuel is strongly in play, and Anunoby is somewhat in play. Those are my early game guys. So mostly I'm delaying for all these 8 Eastern games. And then there's a few other guys who I had on my list. So I'll mention it. We have to see about Fournier. We haven't gotten news on that. If he's out, I would jump really quickly onto Quickly. I think Mo Wagner is definitely in play, but I'm not going to probably end up getting there because, like I said, I'd rather wait for potentially better value. The problem is Wagner could end up, we've seen him just crush, and it's a good matchup too. So it's a little nerve-wracking to just fade that one. I don't mind if you want to do it. I'm just probably not going there. Same thing with the Washington guys, Rui and Avdia especially. Yes, you could throw Kristaps into the mix as well. He's been really, really good, and it's a good matchup. But that's just sort of how I'm treating this situation. I think that's the way I want to play today. I'm obsessed with the Houston-Sacramento game. I will probably have at least 3, as many as maybe 6 players in a good portion of my lineups tonight. That game could go wild, and I also then again I could bust. I could bust on they all play the bench guys, but I can't really because I'm going to be playing those guys. I'm going to be mixing them in as well. I'll be mixing in Garuba even if he doesn't start. I'll be mixing in Fernando even if he doesn't start. I'll be definitely playing Josh Christopher even if he doesn't start. So that's the way I'm treating that. That's where my slate is really officially starting, with a little mix of maybe a Levert on either site, Kevin Love on FanDuel, and then a Butler or a Bam. But these are 7:30 games too. Then there's the Cat, and then we have to wait on the Fournier information, which may not seem like a huge piece of news on the slate like this, but in a great matchup against Charlotte, I'm very intrigued by the upside of Quickly, whether he starts or not. I just want to know whether or not Fournier is in or out. That game's also at 7:30, so we may not find that out till after lock. That's why I bring it up. The 7:30 on games, again, I mentioned the Heat guys. I mentioned that I like Towns on both sides. He's a great play on FanDuel. He's going to be really high owned. I like Edwards' price on FanDuel, and I'm getting little pieces of these guys, but I'm not making these my stacks. My main games to target are I really want the Sacramento Houston game. On FanDuel, I like playing the Poku versus Trey kind of a thing. Not versus Trey, but I like getting both exposure to both those guys in the lineup, especially on FanDuel where Trey's 10K, not 11. But I do think Trey has a big game tonight, and you can include him with the spend ups. The way I built early on didn't make me want to force in too many spend ups, and I think that there's upside for these other guys to really have near ceiling type of games. I like the Davion Mitchell, Kevin Porters of the world. I like the 7K guys. I love CJ McCollum going back to Portland against a terrible team. Obviously that could go either way, but that's what I'm doing right now. The other things I'm focusing on are other pieces in that game. I think Keon Johnson on both sides is interesting. I'd rather take a shot on a later value because you never know what might open up by the time that 10 o'clock hits. You know what I mean? So having Keon Johnson, who I don't rate to be much better than Mo Wagner, if at all, I do like the idea of playing him instead because I get the switchability for later in the day. And if I'm stuck with him, then I'm stuck with him, and that's not a big deal to me anyway. I also like Brandon Ingram in that game if you're not going to play McCollum. We also have Joval with a Q tag, so just keep that in mind, but they are trying to win, so I'm having a hard time thinking that they're going to rest anybody. If there was a game to rest, this would be the one to do it against Portland. Guys like Chris Paul, who I think are just okay, solid plays. I really like the Suns in that spread, by the way. I did put that on my bets of the day just to give you guys one of them, but I really liked – they're now 4.5. They were 3.5 earlier in the day, which I just thought was nuts. So those are sort of the main cores of my team are all those 8 Eastern or later games, and the real priorities being Martin, Tate, DiVincenzo, Mitchell, Maladon. I didn't mention on the other side also. Maladon, you could play Maladon and Poku with Trey on the other side. There's a little mini game stack. We also have DeAndre Hunter questionable. So there's just a lot of stuff we don't know yet on this slate, and that's the way the NBA is going to be until the end of this regular season. The last 20 games of the NBA season in recent times, especially when you factor in not silly things, but crazy things like COVID and stuff into it, there's just always going to be late news. Like in the last part of the season, teams are tanking. They're going to rule some players out. They're going to change their starting lineups. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we need to pay attention to after lock. And some of it's impossible to even speculate on at this moment because we really don't know yet. Fournier in, says Dunbar. So that's going to take Quickly out of my list of guys. Now, I still think Quickly is in a vacuum, still an okay play, by the way. It's just not going to do it because there's just other better spots. And I don't need to play someone who's been in the same spot there. And even in a good matchup, than playing the other guys. He will be very low owned. I think Quickly is worth taking a shot on. I'm sort of surprised they're playing Fournier. Very strange Knicks team. I don't understand it. If you're not going to make it, you're eliminated. Why play guys who are really banged up? Very strange. But I want you guys to drop your questions in here. I want you guys to say what's up. I've been texting with Sheets to try to see what's going on. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so pop in your questions, say hello. That's sort of my initial rundown of the slate, but we are going to be playing these later guys. I also don't mind, in that Knicks game, you could play like guys like Randall. There's a lot of like could plays, and I'll have like one piece of here and there, but the focus is Sacramento, Houston, Atlanta, OKC, Portland, New Orleans for me. And then the individual plays that are obvious. You start your teams with Martin and Tate, and then I will be using Mitchell and DiVincenzo. I will be using Maledon. I will be using a combination of a ton of players from that Houston-Sacramento game. And if you want to, it's not that hard to spend up for Luka. And I like my builds very much where I'm staying in the, playing Jimmy Butler and CJ McCollum, who could both put up 50 in a lineup, even if Jokic and Luka put up 70. These guys are 80. These guys are like 3,600 less. Like you can get some solid in between guys and play these high level 4K guys without having to go all the way down and play a Garuba. Although, again, like I said, I don't mind a Garuba. I also like the 5K. You got Maledon at 5.7. I already mentioned DiVincenzo, obviously. Even a guy like Aaron Wiggins has got some upside against his Atlanta team, and with a very short bench on that team for OKC. I mentioned that I liked Poku, but I'm just focusing. So I'm in this sort of delay mode. If somehow Houston announces Şengün in, what I will do is go, which I don't think is going to happen because he didn't go to the shoot around. If they somehow announce him in, I will go to Şengün, and I will probably really limit my Houston exposures down to maybe 2 per lineup instead of I have some with like 3 or 4. I definitely have some with 3. I think I have some with 4. Kevin Huerter is absolutely viable. That's another one that's a later game, so I'm sort of putting off my choices because I like Kevin Huerter, and again, always be site specific. Always say QQ. Always say something like that. It's really hard for me to sometimes juggle and know what you're talking. Like we don't know about DeAndre Hunter and Jalen Johnson yet. That's 44 minutes projected between the two of them, so it's going to be hard to know whether or not we want Huerter. The guy who you might want is Okongwu. Even if you don't get crossover minutes, OKC is so bad against bigs. If you're not playing Capella, maybe throw in some Okongwu. Kevin Huerter at the moment is not a good projection play at all, but it doesn't mean he's a bad play. I'm not getting to any of him. I way prefer every one of these guys, but could he get there? Sure. Especially, and that's going to change if DeAndre Hunter and Jalen Johnson are out. If those guys are in, probably not going to go anywhere near it. Even though there's nothing wrong with it. But remember, these games he's had, also, he did have Gallinari out, who's out again. Bogdanović was out for one, and Hunter was out for the last one. So just keep that in mind when you're building it. We can't just game log watch and chase, but I don't think he's a bad play at all. I just like some other guys better. Would I rank DeJounte in my spend up? See, this is what I'm doing. This is what's crazy to me. That's a really good question. It feels wrong on its face to play DeJounte basically at just 1,000 less than Jokic, 1,200 less than Jokic, 800 less than Luka. But I'm going to do it. I love the pace of this type of game. San Antonio is going to play him 40-ish minutes if the game's close. I mean like even reasonably close, like 15 points. Like they're in, this is the desperation mode. 6 games left in the season. We're tied for a playoff spot. They've been pushing for this playoff spot. You might see 40 minutes out of DeJounte Murray, and that's going to be hard for me to resist. It's not that Memphis is bad defensively. It's that they just play so fast. This game he should be in the 60+ range. So I'll take him as my spend up over the other guys. And that feels wrong saying it, but that's where I'm at the moment. I have no problem if you disagree with me and you want to play Luka or you want to play Jokic. That's just what I'm doing in the interest of full transparency. And I'm not going to say I won't have a Luka lineup or a Jokic lineup, but that's that guy who I'm actually prioritizing as a full-on spend up. Although mostly, like I said, I don't know that I need to spend all the way up. I think the Towns and beneath the Towns and you get some Butler or Bam and McCollum, or there's just that's sort of the range I'm more focused on. And then you obviously have the 7K guys with the Porter and the Mitchell who are like, in a ton of my lineup. So that's the way I'm building today. All right, guys, keep popping in some questions. We have a lot less people here today than usual, and that's a little bit too bad. I understand that the NBA is so frustrating, like so frustrating. People give up on it this time of year, and that's where I try to take advantage of it. And I have a 5 days like where I don't win. I won last night, but and then I have one day where I win 5 times what I lost in the 5 days previous. That's sort of the nature of the NBA this time of the year for me. But right now we've been doing really well. I want to keep it rolling. So if other people are going to be out, that's fine. And other people kind of want to check out. They want a lineup built before lock. No, that's not the way. You can't win playing NBA like that. You can get lucky every now and then, but long term, you're a losing player unless you're going to be there and nurse your lineups throughout whatever might happen, or at least have the ability to late swap onto something, because there's definitely going to be news. Caleb Martin is out. Gabe Vincent and Robinson going to play. Not a big deal. Anyway, sorry about this. We're just trying to make sure. It looks like Sheets' things should be good. They should be on the site. And if you can't see them, let me know, because as far as I know, they absolutely should be available. And guys, please pop in some questions or thoughts, because I would love some 2v2, some conversations. Got to give a shout out to Kobe Forel. There was one night where I can't remember who the play was. I'm usually good at this stuff, and then today for some reason it's just escaping me. But he turned me on to one night it worked, one night it didn't. But it worked very, very well the night it did. And then I had Will Barton in a lineup. I wasn't really considering him, but then I just didn't realize how far his price had sort of suffered, and he wasn't even unowned. But sometimes I'm turning you guys on to plays. You guys can turn me on to plays too. You could be the best player in the world. Doesn't mean someone else may not bring up a good point about somebody. So I'm happy to hear anything you guys have to say. Keep popping in thoughts and questions again. This is the quietest chat we've ever seen. We got my man Dunbar in there. We got Nick in town. What's up, buddy? I don't see K9 Bronco, who always says what's up when he comes on. So maybe he's not playing tonight. Haven't seen him. People, it's not a bad time if you want to take a break from NBA. So we're going to have less people. Our videos get less views than they have in basically ever, because this is the time of year. But this is there's ways to beat this. And we've been, without tooting our own horns, I guess I am doing that, but we've been absolutely crushing the second half of this NBA season between Sheets, Rody, and myself. So please click the like button. Please give me all the questions, all the thoughts. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm right. Tell me whatever you think. I'm happy to hear it. And Dunbar loves that. LA man, let's go. Thanks for the kind words. Let's go hop on the DeJounte train again. It makes me nervous to advise it. I feel much more comfortable putting it into my own 888 lineups than I do even saying it out loud, because I just look at it. I'm going, God, this can't be right. But if I factor in 1/3 the ownership of those guys, the must win, the upside of minutes, and the fact that the game should stay fairly close if he's having any kind of a game at all, I'm kind of into that spot, man. I'm just into it. What's up to HCOO? Do I like OG on DK? So I think OG is like a play that is just fine. I think that there is a 10 fantasy point game in his mix, and I think that there is a 40. Does he ever really get much more than 40? Probably not. Is he going to be popular? Yes, he will. So let's take Anunoby and use it as an example with a guy like, I don't know, Quickly. Quickly is going to be significantly lower owned. He's a little cheaper, and he probably has a more realistic chance of really exceeding his ceiling. Remember, we had OG win. We had games with I think it was Siakam, Van Vliet, and Trent out, and OG put up like 6 fantasy points in 38 minutes. He is not ever going to be an automatic play for me. Now, I do like him, but I don't think that he's as strong of a play. I don't know. It feels like you're chasing. You're not chasing. It feels like you're searching for upside. But I think he's totally fine. Like, he's a fine filling piece. If you end up and you need that price range and you need a small forward, I think I would go with OG. Just be okay with it. But he's certainly not a priority for me. He's a guy. The field's supposed to have him about 16 to 20% of the time, 16 to 20% based on the site you're looking at. I think I'll be more like 5 to 10 on a guy like that. And even that, I don't know if I'll end up with that much. But that's where I am. But he'll probably end up in a lineup or two of mine. It depends, Chris. That's what I said at the beginning. We could speculate all day if we want to. Now, Fernando is in play even if he doesn't start. But if he does start, he's a really good play. If Garuba starts, he's the guy I want to play. We need their starting lineup. We don't know who they're going to start. Another good reason why you have to wait till you get their starting lineup to really commit that. But should be no problem, because 6 of my players are going to be in the 8 Eastern or later games pretty much in all my lineups. Maybe I'll have one that doesn't have that, but I think almost all, right now, I think all of my lineups have 6 guys in the later games, the 8 Eastern or later. So we can figure that out. But part of the reason was to find out about Fournier. He was one of the pieces, but not the most important one. But we already got that news, so maybe you can you say it doesn't matter quite as much to weight, but the starting lineups for Houston and Sacramento are definitely important. More Houston side, we know what Sacramento probably will start with, but they're low bodies and a high total game with all kinds of horrible defense and guys just gunning from everywhere. It just feels like there's so many fantasy points to be had here. So like, I'm going to be all over that. And there's ways to get different with it. I'm going to play Josh Christopher. If he's not starting, I'll play him if he starts too. But like, if he doesn't start, he's going to be like 10% owned or less. That's just wrong to me. Moses Brown starting for Evan Mobley. Cleveland is so stubborn, aren't they? That's a really good question. So let me give a few minutes for SaberSim and some of the other optimizers that I'm using, or some of the other things that I just take a look at because I want to see what other people think. I default to SaberSim. I really, really trust that they are the best in the business. And I'm not just saying this because we're part of it. To tell you the truth, tracking wise on historical accuracy, they have been by a pretty solid margin number one. So I'm going to go with that kind of stuff. And for example, they love Josh. I see them projecting Josh Christopher with like 6 more fantasy points tonight, which is a lot at his price, 3,900, than basically any other site. He's one of their top point per dollars, where other sites don't even have him very relevant. So just keep that in mind. And they also have him a lot more owned. So we'll see what happens. It's going to depend on who starts for Houston. But let's see what happens with the Moses Brown. That's a really interesting one. And let's see if we've got this real quick. Shea Brissett is out again. Okay, let me just see if I want to do anything. I really don't want to get heavily invested in the Pacers, but they're kind of making us have some interest with the O'Shea Brissett out. I mean, like Terry Taylor, if he's like, he was terrible in 33 minutes the other night, but he's 4,400. And if he plays, I don't think he's going to put up only like half a fantasy point per minute, which is basically where he's been lately. I don't know. I'm curious to see how the starting lineup break shakes out, but I definitely have a little more openness. I'm still back on the Lance as a long shot play, but again, I'm not a high buy-in play, a long shot tournament play. I think Lance is kind of interesting. I'd be curious to see if they start Sykes again or what they're going to do about that. I'm not really sure. So let's see how their starting lineup shakes out. I don't think I have that yet. I'm double checking the other starting lines we do have. Same thing for Washington that we see every night. We have Bombo, Kiki, Wagner, Franz, Hampton, and Cole Anthony. You know, boy, I'll tell you what, if you told me a few weeks back these guys were all going to be like unowned at this price, I would have had some interest. I think you could make an argument for them as good large field plays. The basically every Magic. There literally isn't, like, if I had to pick one outside of, I mean, obviously Mo Wagner is going to be the one who's popular, but I actually think Franz Wagner might be the best tournament play of those guys, because I think 40 plus is definitely in the realm of possibility with no Wendell Carter. And, you know, not to mention, obviously, we don't have Suggs and we haven't had him for a while. KJ Martin, yeah, it says, so to go back to again to start, guys, and we try to put the video up just so you guys have it. Like, we try to put the video up at 15 minutes before we actually go live, so you all get pinged and you see it on our Discord channel. But I always end up repeating myself over and over again, which I'm happy to do to some extent, but it's kind of probably gets boring for the people who are here the whole time. So really just know that I tell everything from the beginning of what I'm doing. And the better we can work it out together, the better, you know, it's going to go for everybody in the long term. But now I actually forgot what the question was. Let's see. What was the question? If Sengun is out. Yeah, KJ Martin and Deshaun Tate are like, again, we need to see who's starting, but even if he's not starting, I'm going to play KJ Martin. And I think right now he's probably like the most obvious play on the slate of everybody. Definitely the best point per dollar I've seen amongst 4 different sites, that I'm looking at right now. He is the best point per dollar play on the slate, according to them. And I actually think you could argue that he might be under projected. So you're going to be a tough one to fade for me. Everybody's going to come from that Houston situation, and I like all of it. I will be mixing it all around. I'll be overweight on everybody. That's just the way that I'm going to do it. Sometimes I like to fade those situations or whatever. This is not one of those days. I'm going for it. Barnes or Kevin Love on FanDuel. It's Kevin Love for me. It's a really good question. I do have some Barnes as well. I think in those lineups I have Love together. I don't think I've built a FanDuel lineup without Love yet, but I also really want to know if he's starting. So we need the starting lineup to answer. So if Kevin Love is not starting, I will still take tournament shots on him on FanDuel. Absolutely. Oh, he's not. Oh, we have Moses Brown to start. I didn't have the full starting lineup. So is it officially Brown, Markkanen, Okoro, LeVert, Garland? That's weird, man. I don't think we can do anything with the Moses. Let me get back to you guys on that one, because that feels fishy. to do. However, we've seen Moses Brown when he's got minutes before just completely smash. It's just like they're trying to stick with their two bigs thing, and they're trying to bring Love off the bench. Why? Because they lost the one game he started. I don't understand it. And I, you know what? I don't want to question Cleveland too much. They've done a great job all year long. This makes me like the Mavericks better and better. There's absolutely no reason Moses Brown should be getting significant minutes in this game. But if he's going to, I still have him projected really low. And I'm going to make sure and take a look at what we've got over here. So I've got him. I mean, the minutes that I've got him at are not anything I want to ever touch, but I don't know that they're 100% accurate. The truth is, though, he's never closing because obviously they're playing Kevin Love. In a blowout, he gets to play, but that seems, doesn't seem like back-to-back for Dallas in Cleveland. Doesn't seem like a blowout game to me. It could end up being, I don't know. There's just almost no way he's on their primary lineup unless somebody gets in serious foul trouble. And even then, I don't think he is, because you've still got Stevens who they give minutes to. Obviously, Okoro will play a ton of minutes, and they'll throw some Windler in there. So I don't know if that Moses Brown is actually in play at all. Maybe if you're playing 150, you throw him into one, as where I've got him right now. I just have no projection of him as anything decent even, and I'm not sure that that's right, but it does seem weird that Cleveland would just go out there and throw him out there and it gets a team that doesn't play a real true big, because I don't count Powell. You'd need nothing with size. Markkanen actually matches up just fine with Powell. And then they play really small other than that. So I don't see it. I'm going to be more on the Kevin Love train probably than I was with him not starting. All right, guys, keep popping in thoughts and questions. Should be another 5 to 10 minutes that I'm here before I go and actually build my lineups. I will be in Discord. We have a very live active Discord. So please check that out. And don't forget to hit the like button. We always appreciate it. It's going to be fun with baseball coming up, guys. We know what we can do with baseball, which is great, is a lot of the tools that we offer, a lot of things. Those early builds I'll do, and I'll do a lot of them. I'll have my actual percentages next to them, but I'll show you 20 of my lineups to start the day, or I'll show you 10 of them, or whatever. And those lineups aren't going to change that much. In basketball, they're always going to change. It's a good baseline for where to start at my initial builds. But you don't get that. Nobody else is doing that. And this is I told you I've won the Monster and I finished second in the what's it called? I think it was that day it was the 40K. It was the 600 or 555 or whatever on DK. And they were the same lineups with one pivot, and even the pivot scored the same amount of points on the Monster side, and only a couple points less on the DraftKings side. And they're winning lineups. You know what I mean? Overall, I'm going to be a winning player, and it's something that our transparency actually comes into use for baseball, because in basketball we know everything's going to become a mess and shift late. Anyway, but we're good. Yeah, Sheets of all people should learn not to write me 37 different text messages while I'm on the air, but I love Sheets, so I'm going to have to deal with it. He just literally, you guys should see this just how many messages there are. It's like literally like a couple pages here, and he's trying to help out. So I really appreciate that. I just can't do it while I'm hosting a show solo for 11 game slate in NBA. Yeah, the FanDuel four entry for 100K grand. Yeah, let's get it, Green Monster. I'm very excited about that. Zach Collins is absolutely not interesting. Let me just save you the trouble here. If he has a game on this kind of a slate, playing guys like Zach Collins would be pretty terrible, in my opinion. He did get the 21 minutes. So he's got 2 games where he's played over 20 minutes. One of them against his former team. I'm going to give him that edge there. Are they willing to go a little higher with him? Do we think they're going to get blown out here? I don't know. It's fine. I guess let me rephrase it. I guess it's fine. It's just terrible compared to every other value play. Like, who are you playing him over? Like, you're playing him over Martin, any of the value from that whole game? I just don't see it. I can promise one thing. If it was like a 3-game slate or a 4-game slate and people were playing other value, that's when I would use a guy like Zach Collins. And if he gets there, I'm not going to be right or wrong about this ever, because I know what's going to happen. He's going to play probably 16 to 20 minutes, usually around 18. And he might put up 15 to 20 fantasy points. Every now and then he'll get his way up to 30. In that case, he is a good play. But there's no logic in playing him. There's nothing logical that stands out about playing Zach Collins tonight. It's probably, especially on an 11-game slate where we have tons of other value that we don't really need to desperately play. All right, what else have we got in here? And it sucks. By the way, next year we'll change our mind on Zach Collins. When they start letting him play real minutes, that guy's going to put up some big-time fantasy numbers. Eubanks or Horford on DK? Oh, I'm so sorry. I missed the other Eubanks question. Eubanks or Horford on DK? So that's an Green Monster. We're back at it again here, man. You got to help me understand how they're getting to this, because I don't know how you can have a. Let me just double check. What is the price? So Eubanks, let me just see real quick. You have a huge pricing difference. It doesn't 8,100 versus 5,900. I don't know how. Like I just never have come to a build like that in my life, so I really can't relate. I'm not trying to say it to be a jerk. I really need to understand what you're thinking or how you're coming to that conclusion, because there's no lineup that has to be a 2v2. That cannot be a 1v1. You're not leaving 2,200 on the table and trying to play Horford. So no Horford for me. Mark, really kind of appreciate it. Mark posted the CSV files in Discord. Mark, really appreciate it. Stepping in on vacation. We ended up launching faster with Saberson than we thought. So Mark's just been incredible doing everything over time, and Evan's done a great job. Evan got the win last night, by the way, in a basketball tournament. So shout out to Evan for that. It was huge. I said it on my earlier video. It was a great job. So Warriors love on DK versus Phoenix. No. I would go so far as to say, what are we trying to do if we're trying to do that? So the Warriors have had everybody out. Now they get everybody back, and now we want to play them in a terrible matchup. I have no interest in it at all. I think you could make a large field tournament case for Otto Porter. I just hope he gets hot, I guess. I hope he gets the same. His rebounding rate has been incredible. But again, that was without Draymond. Most of those games were without Draymond and Clay, for what it's worth. So I don't find myself with any interest whatsoever. I think you could make like maybe a large field, like large. No, it just feels so wrong. Looney would be a bad one too. I just don't like any of it. Nothing for me. I think Wiggins at 5,500 on FanDuel maybe, and Green on FanDuel. Green is 4,900, I believe, on FanDuel. That's cheap enough to where I'm okay with going. Okay. I'll take my shot. Draymond, especially after the little narrative thing the other day. And I guess that makes him okay on DraftKings. So I guess if you had to play one, if someone said, hey, gun to your head, who you're playing, it's Draymond. And I will have Draymond in one of my big FanDuel lineups. I did make that decision. The problem is power forward is pretty loaded, so it's kind of hard over there. What's up, Sam Stu? Good to see you, buddy. Get Sam to Stu. Sensei J, what's up, buddy? QQ thoughts on CP3 FanDuel? I think CP3 is fine. I'm going to end up with a little bit of it, but probably not much. I think he's completely fine. The assist rate's been great. They really have literally less than nothing to play for. Maybe history a little bit, kind of, just because they're going to be one of the winningest teams in the NBA. Believe it or not, that's how good they've been. And Chris Paul's been just out of this world good in his first two games back. But I don't think that's going to be the kind of way you win a tournament, in my opinion. But if it's last piece and you're stuck on that price, absolutely. And you like the rest of your build, it's just not a guy who I'm trying to get in on FanDuel, if that makes sense. And the other question was Eubanks that I wanted to answer, because I didn't understand the Eubanks Horford, but please clarify it, because I really just don't understand it. There was another question about the Eubanks that I'm missing. If whoever asked the question, please re-ask it. Sorry about that. I must have missed it. Oh, you're chasing by playing Eubanks after his eruption game. Yeah, you are. But I also think Eubanks is a good, I think he's a guy you can always do with that with, because he's got upside. Terrible matchup. Couldn't be worse for him. Oh no, sorry, not Eubanks. Terrible matchup. Yeah, it's a terrible matchup for Eubanks against Joe Val. But again, Joe Val, if he sits and all that stuff, I don't know. On FanDuel at 7,500, I would say that I think he's definitely in play. On DraftKings, I don't think I can get to him taking out my only center spot. It's just that position is so loaded. We have power forwards like Love at 5,200. You've got you don't have Şengün anymore, but you've got Harrison Barnes. I like Poku a lot. There's just a lot of guys, you know what I mean? I love Towns at 8,900, which takes up the center spot. So that means I'm going to be playing Love and Poku and Barnes at the power forward. But Barnes, I can use a small forward at least. Yeah. And Draymond Green, who I just said at 4,900 is definitely interesting. Yeah. Hey, really appreciate it. Really kind of you to say, be positive. Really, really, really like that. Not really like that. Really, really appreciate the kind words. What pale Trailblazer against CJ revenge? It's not just revenge. So let's remember the one. That's what makes me nervous about CJ. I do like him, and it's a great matchup anyway, so I can always justify it by that. But the thing is, it's not like they did him dirty or anything. They tried to keep him there forever, and everybody in the media is trying to get him to get traded. He was the one. They kept him there. They were loyal to that man. And by the way, there's another little bonus though that also flips that on its head or whatever. If Joe Val does somehow sit, which again I'm not projecting right now, but if he does, then you really like CJ and Ingram. The hard part is to try and find a Portland run back that we feel safe with. I think Keon Johnson is going to play enough minutes that gives him upside. I think Greg Brown and Macklemore and Brandon Williams all feel a little little thin. Brandon Williams is probably less thin than he seems like he is at 7,400. So he would probably be the most interesting one. But I threw Ellaby into a FanDuel build. I don't really love him, but he's 4,300. And he's playing in the minutes, so good pace matchup. You know, they do have some more bodies than they did the other night. Partly why we loved them before is because they had 3 less bodies than they do tonight. So that's why Portland is much less interesting to me. I'm just gonna take a quick look and before I get out of here and see if the Brissett update had a major impact on anything for me, because that is the only thing that I didn't have updated yet. Let's see what I've got. Yeah, I don't really have anything over there, but I don't mind if you want to take some stabs at the guys we've talked about, like Terry Taylor. Terry Taylor would probably be the most interesting to me because they played in a lot of minutes, but I would like to see their starting lineup before I made a final decision actually on that one. And let's see if they've given me that while I've been sitting here talking as fast as I possibly can. It doesn't look like we got it yet. All right, guys, really appreciate the kind words. Any of the 5K centers as the last question on FanDuel, 5K centers on FanDuel. So I am in love with Cat maybe too much. So maybe that's where I ran into it. If Şengün plays, obviously Şengün, but I didn't like Kevin Love. You could use at center. You could use Metu, who's 4,100. Oh, Capella. Capella is really a strong play. Sorry. I have one lineup where I have Şengün as my center. It will be switched to Capella because I have the $100 difference. That it will be that. That's the one who would be for me, Capella. All right, guys. Şengün officially out. There we go. We sort of figured that. But so it's the same guys we mentioned, Martin, Tate. Depending on who they start, that's going to be the next thing. But guys, really appreciate all the kind words. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Again, check out truedfs.com. Join us in the chat. I'll try and be on answer as many questions as I can on Discord up to lock. But it's hard when I'm juggling. But I do get to everything, and sometimes the questions are for things later down the road, and I can answer them then. So tag me and let's make some money.